trumpeting the Russian government's line right now are in the United States.
Hi, Mark.
How are you?
Doing okay.
Good. That's important to us.
I have like 50 plants being delivered tomorrow, and I'm trying to figure out how to plant them between the rainstorms.
Well, you call, I'll come.
How you doing, Mark?
I'm good, David. How are you?
I never see you anymore.
Well, I'm bouncing around. I do this, and I'm heavily involved with this place called the Box Center, which is the Wang Theater and the Schubert Theater. And one of my new best friends is Ernie, who just announced that he's giving away 7,000 gallons of gas on April Fool's Day in Norwood. He's a terrific guy.
I saw that. Yeah.
He is. He's different, but he's just a terrific guy. So, you know, that and a couple of real estate boards, and that's pretty much all I got going on.
So how do I fill up my car with gas from your friend Ernie?
You get up early tomorrow and you drive to Norwood to the Rojo fuel station and car wash right on the Miracle Mile. And you are first come, first serve.
It'll be packed.
You use more gas getting there.
Right.
Yes, that's true. And Brian Kelly doesn't seem to be doing the same thing up here, so I guess we'll wait.
Yeah. Oh, good.
Looks like I have Peter and Mark. So we need another person. Andy said he was going to be a little late.
I see Dean connecting.
Oh, good. I haven't heard anything from Mike Pratt recently.
Might be a hockey night for him.
Yeah, he usually tells me if he's not going to make it.
Yeah. There's Andy.
Oh, well, he's not very late, is he?
There we go. Not too bad. Everyone.
That doesn't count as late, Andy.
I'll try to do better next time.
So I have Mark and Peter and Dean and Andy and myself on. We'll go ahead and start. Maury tends to have troubles making it on time on Thursdays, and I haven't heard from Mike Pratt. So I'll call the Finance Committee meeting to order on Thursday, March 31st at 7:03 p.m. And our first item on the agenda is to take votes on revotes or amended votes or whatever on two areas of the budget and the operating budget and on the capital budget. And seeing the library folks, you may guess that one of them is the library budget. So if we look at the library budget, which happens to be on page 125 of my book, I don't know if it is on everyone's, but we've adjusted the salaries from 354,323 up to 367,823, which puts the custodian working for the town portion of his salary or her salary back into the library budget. The same person's doing the work. It's just a matter of bringing the library budget up to where they wanted it to be. And on the comprehensive cleaning, it's increased from 0 to 2,000 to reflect some of the extra cleaning they outsource at the library. And I think that's it. So that brings the total budget to $524,429. Does that agree with what you have, Greg?
It does, yes.
Yes. So do I have a motion to approve the library budget, the revised library budget?
So moved.
The amount of $524,429.
So moved.
Do I have a second?
I'll second it.
Andy seconds. Any discussion?
Oh, I remember that the library was below minimum state requirements, so that's one of the drivers. Is this, can we afford this? Is this something that is
We're,
in the grand scheme of things?
yeah, we're going to revote the facilities budget, which will be reduced by the 13,000 odd of the custodian salary.
I
So-
see.
The only additional amount is the 2,000. Okay, that is the net difference in the budget. Okay.
And again, the reason for this, Sarah, is what?
The library is saying that in order to retain its certification, it needs to
Okay.
increase its budget 2.5% a year,
Got it.
which
This
seems
is-
a little
it's key.
draconian because you're forcing the town to increase their budgets by the maximum allowed under 2.5. but it is what
They
it
want to
is.
make sure you keep your library robust.
Right.
Thank you.
By the way, excellent mailer this week from the library. I thought that was a well-done piece.
Thank you very much.
So does anybody from the library have anything to say?
Rick?
Certainly appreciate this level of funding and know that'll help us have a quality library.
Great.
Yeah, hi, Rick Rogers, 82 Old Essex Road, Library Trustee Chair. Yeah, echoing Sarah's comments, I know it is prescriptive from the state, but it also does ensure that knowledge and education is a key issue for the town and servicing that. So thank you for the attention. Apologies for any confusion in getting to this point, but again, thank you. And that's it. Thank you.
Thanks. With that, I'll take a roll call vote. Peter,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. So now we'll move to the facilities budget, which is on page 104 of my book.
Thank you all
And-
very much.
You're welcome. So the facilities budget, the salary line has changed from 48,837 down to 35,337. And the total budget, wait a minute, I've got a problem here. What's the total, Greg? My number went up and it should go down.
I have 140,837.
That's what I have, but we used to have 1,055.
No, that was just the expenses, not including the salary.
Okay, thank you. Okay.
So,
Okay.
yes.
Oh, yeah, it's on the next page. Sorry.
yeah,
Okay.
yeah, no, that's
Okay.
confusing, but yes.
Okay. So do I have a motion to approve the amended DPW facilities budget of $140,837?
So moved.
Andy moves. Do I have a second?
Second,
Who was that? Peter?
Mark.
Mark, okay, sorry. So what this has done is remove the 13,500 of the custodian salary from the facilities to the library. But it still will be the town custodian that's providing the services to the library. Any discussion? No, I'll take a roll call vote, and I see that Maury's joined us. Peter,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Now we move to the capital budget. Wait a minute. Oh yeah, the library we just did. Okay. I have my little ear flaps on my pages, so I'm getting myself confused. So the capital budget for 2023. It appears to me that there's two changes to it. One I wasn't aware of until I looked at the detail, the other was aware of. So one of the things that happened at the Board of Selectmen's meeting is they added back in for the harbor, the Reed Park completion at $40,000. And then it looks to me like the road resurfacing budget has decreased from 350 to 209 because of additional money from Chapter 90. So the total capital budget is 3,356,425. Do I have that right, Greg or Andrea?
So it was always 350, but it was comprised of the 209 and the 141 from chapter 90. So that didn't change it, but it's a little confusing because the 350 is the total, but what we approve is the 209 because the chapter 90 is off book as a
We
state
used to
grant.
include the Chapter 90, right? And we don't anymore. We've changed it last year.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Okay, so
So Sarah, what's the total again, please?
$3,356,425. And, I know when we had our discussion on the harbor budget, we moved the pickup truck at Byron's request from next year to this year and moved Reed Park from this year to next. Unfortunately, the Board of Selectmen voted something different and didn't really consult us. But I'm not sure it's worth making a deal over 40,000. I presume that the capital budget next year will be 40,000 less.
Did they have a?
Yeah, and again, they
Was
were
there a
taking.
particular reason? I mean, is there any thinking here that helps them to want to do it that way?
Right, so they picked up on the fact that Byron was able to acquire the new boat and the new engines, acquired a used boat instead of the new boat, saving significantly and eliminating the need to allocate new dollars for the new engine replacements. So basically, they felt that since we removed the need for the new engines, they slid in the Reed Park improvements. Not so it was no net addition because we could eliminate the engine cost, and they really feel that the new revenues that the floats can generate with the added services will be very beneficial, down the road.
And the challenge I have with
Really?
it is that, we were aware of that decrease in expense and we explicitly chose to defer repayment. But
The real issue here, I think, is that the selectmen either didn't have the opportunity or didn't buy into. I was on the call and I don't think we discussed it. And the harbor committee was doubtful about our suggestion that we just raise the rates because we were below market anyway and test that out before we spend any more capital. So that's the factor that didn't get any traction. So absent that, you know, when somebody tells you if you invest 40, you're going to get a ton back in increased revenue, the selectmen said, that sounds good, especially since we saved the money. So I think that's the dynamic here. And I don't think it's worth an argument or an additional argument. I made the argument in front of the harbor committee, and they were concerned about overpricing our floats and becoming a Nantucket type place.
What was anyone concerned about the increased traffic? I thought we were also trying to keep the traffic down in there by keeping the rates up, because it is a small harbor, but you know.
I meant,
it's not a
I
big
meant,
issue.
that's a good point. I mentioned that at the harbor committee. I didn't speak at the selectmen's meeting.
Right.
I was on the selectmen's meeting and I didn't speak either, so may have been my bad, but I just was surprised.
Sarah, I had a data point and then also a question. The data point is that I spoke with somebody, interestingly enough, yesterday, who was from Marblehead, who gave me an absolute earful about coming into Manchester and being approached by the staff because he was 5 minutes late coming back carrying a pizza and a frap. And I guess we know Laughing Gull is sometimes a little slow, but he got pretty well accosted by staff because he was late and wasn't terribly enamored with the whole experience. So that's just a data point. The question is actually probably for you, Greg. It's a little higher. We had 42,000 or 40,000 for repowering the safe boat. So we took that line away because wasn't it that Bion found another boat entirely? And if so, where did the funds for that total other boat come from?
So at the fall town meeting, dollars were appropriated to purchase a new boat and new engine.
Okay.
Using waterway funds. And so he's able to use those funds to purchase the used boat and to buy new engines for the safe boat. Using
Okay.
what was originally slated for the new boat and one engine.
To be clear, the 40,000 is coming from the fund balance, not from Waterways Fund, when I look at the breakdown of expenses in the capital budget.
Right. We made that shift. It's concerned that the waterway funds needed some time to recover.
And we're almost down to 10% on our fund balance.
Reserves.
Yep, so we've used up the excess, so next year could be quite interesting.
Yeah, it'll obviously depending on
Elections.
how we do with actual expenditures and revenues for 23.
Right. And we're going to have that discussion later because I'm still confused on the reserves. So glad to see Andrea's on. So any more questions regarding this item?
Yes, I have one.
Yes.
What you just mentioned. So with this additional spending, we still maintain the 10% reserve. Is that correct?
I believe so.
Yeah.
It's not clear to me what's happening with the reserves. I'm struggling with the spreadsheet I have because it's not clear to me which years are which on it. And so I haven't been able to update the FinCom report yet with the reserve information because it's, I mean, I had reserves as of July 1st, 2021 of 5592. They apparently have changed to 5,725,951. And then I don't know the number as of July 1st, 2022. That's an estimate, and I don't know if that was the estimate you were giving today, Greg, which would be spending the 1.2 million and then dropping it by 5 because of excess revenue and excess spending down to 700, which would move it from 5,725 to 5 million.
Yeah, those numbers were for 23, not 22.
Because in 23, we're only spending 919,000 from
For
reserves.
capital, and then we also use the reserve for OPEB.
Oh, okay. I missed that, okay. So Andrea, do you know what the estimate is for July 1st, 2022?
Have that. I'm trying to see if I can open it right now.
Because
So
I
I'll get
have,
that.
yeah, I have a spreadsheet. I just, we talk about fiscal year, but I think the reserves are as of the first day of the year, not the last day on your spreadsheet. And that's where I get confused.
Yes, because
Easy
it's
to
certified
confuse
as
me.
of July 1st, but it kind of relates to the prior year. But
Yeah.
then you can use it for the following year.
Yeah, so I think you had certified as of July 1st, 2021, the 5725951.
Correct, yes.
And then you had estimates as of 7/1/22 of 4,528,353. Is that right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. So then after 2023, your estimate for 2022, does that include any excess revenue or savings and expenses? We don't have savings and expenses, I know.
No, I usually do like a trending estimate, and that's what I include in that.
Okay,
Because then I just make sure that we cover like OPEB and things like that, which we usually do.
so 7/1/23, we would be expecting 3.8 based on what Greg gave us,
That sounds right.
which is less than 10%.
Is it? I thought the total budget was 39,900,000 or something.
Right, so if we're down to 3.8, it's less than 10%.
Oh, I'm sorry, you said less. I said, sorry.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Sarah,
So
can you
that's-
just repeat the numbers for end of fiscal year 22 and end of what we think will be end of fiscal 20, well, end of fiscal 22 and end of fiscal 21?
So as of July 1st, 2021, which is end of fiscal 2020, right? No, 21, it was 5,725,951. That's certified. It was decreased by 3.9% or almost 354,000. As of July 1st, 2022, we're expecting 4,528,353, which is a decrease of 20.9%, or using almost 1.2 million.
Okay, great.
And then as of 7/1/23, based on current budget, we're spending 1.2 million, but then expecting excess revenue of 300,000 and spending savings of 200, which would bring it down to 3.8, slightly less than 10%.
Okay.
Which means we have no excess reserves for next year. Is what I would assume in next year's budget.
And
Right.
isn't the 10% some magic number to get good bonding rates? Do we not
Isn't it?
want, or it's around there?
It's
around.
around. It's, they like to see 8 to 12 typically is what they will tell you.
So the annual report will have to begin to reflect that fact that we are not maintaining 10%.
Well, we're not there yet.
I
It's
think you are
not,
maintaining 10.
I think it wouldn't be in this
If
year's
revenue
financial
comes in a
report.
little higher than projected this year, you'll be, I mean, I could see 100,000 easily coming in extra, so that would be that exactly
We
10%.
always have that.
Right.
This is
Right.
what Maury and I
Yes.
have been discussing for so
No,
long.
I will admit, I am conservative in the projections as well, so. And then the other thing I did want to mention too, that I had not included previously was like the new fees for the harbor, like the dock fees and the new dredge fee and all that stuff, that actually goes in the general fund, not the waterway fund.
Okay,
So that will also contribute as well.
and that would be next year?
Yes, so we're collecting the revenue right now and it'll be included in the free cash certification as of July 1 of 2022.
Oh, so we're already receiving the extra income?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes, to date, we've gotten about $25,000 just in dock fees alone. I have to look at the dredge fee. I haven't gotten that broken out yet.
okay.
We're good.
We still have 25% of the year to go.
Yes,
Right.
exactly. And
This is
summer's gonna come
tomorrow.
early, right?
Right.
God, I hope. Okay. And of course, part of the reason we were using the excess reserves is because for the last 2 years, we held down the tax rate increase. So 2 years ago, we were at 0, and last 2 we were at 1.5. So, you know, we knew we were using reserves because we weren't doing the full 2.5 on the tax rate to give people some breathing room. So,
And the reserves have been up in 14.5 to almost 16%
Right.
operating at times over the last 10 years. So
My only concern is just maintaining the 10, that's all. And it sounds like we are able to do it. So
right, yeah.
I think the 10 is a reasonable number.
And doesn't the 39 million, doesn't that include the school budget also?
Yes. Oh, yes.
Yeah, so,
Yes.
and school has 3.5 million in reserves. So our reserves are not only just on the town side, but also include the school portion in the 10%. And we have unused levy limit of about $1 million. But that's raising taxes, but without an overall, So do I have a motion to approve the amended fiscal year 2023 capital improvement plan for a total of $3,356,425?
so
So
moved.
moved.
Maury moves. Do I have a second? Peter seconds. Any more discussion? Then I'll take a roll call vote. Peter,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes,
Andy,
Yes.
Maury,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes.
Sarah, one question.
Yes.
I know stabilization is probably still around 1.8. I presume, are we comfortable keeping that there? Or Greg, do you or Andrea have any recommendations or insights to increase that, or is that just hold as is?
I think it's fine to hold as is.
I mean, it's almost, if the estimate at the end of 2023 is 3.8, it's almost 2/3 of the total reserves, which seems to be high because it requires a 2/3 majority vote, so.
I'm not advocating we add any more to it. I was just curious if there's some reason on the horizon that we weren't aware of for changing it, but
The catastrophe. A big storm.
Mm.
Okay, then next I wanted to go through the warrant articles. I believe Greg sent that to people yesterday. Do you have that? Okay.
Yep.
Article 1, Article 2, I don't believe we ever take a stand. They're not financial articles. Paying 0 to people, I don't believe is a financial article. Then Article 3 is the Essex North Shore Agricultural and Technical School District in the amount of $223,380. I believe we voted for that budget. So would we recommend this?
Yes.
Yes,
Yes, second.
Okay. Next is raise to pay town debts and charges for the ensuing 12 months. I guess we recommend to raise, to pay the taxes.
That's the whole budget.
Yeah.
exactly. That's the whole budget,
It's
which we
it's
just
two
voted, I think.
sentences representing 100 pages of work.
The next is Article 5, which is the capital budget we just voted on. So we recommend that.
Yes,
Yes.
Okay. Next is the school district, which I believe we voted on that budget to support it, and it hasn't changed. So do we recommend that?
yes,
Yes,
The next is the Community Preservation Committee, which we voted for
Mhm.
support, so we recommend that.
We do.
Okay. Then we have the OPEB of the 278, 173. We recommend that since we voted
Yes.
on it.
Yes.
Yes,
Oh, the next is the recreation revolving fund of 350,000. This is something that's done every year, and I believe it's because the fees they collect go into a revolving fund and then they pay expenses out of it. Is that correct, Greg?
Yep, yep, and we increase this a little bit each year.
and I'm sorry, Greg, so this has a long history, I gather. And it limits the amount that can be spent in any one year. Is that what I'm reading this to mean?
Right, it sets a ceiling on how much money can come in and out.
And why do we bother to do that?
It's required.
It's the law.
Is there some
Fair
statute?
question, I think.
The law originally was set up because it had to do with like student activity accounts, really, how it came about. Because, you have these like large prom, expenses and things like that. And they were finding that there was a lot of, there wasn't like a limit or like a cap or anything. And so that increases liability for the town or the school. So they just wanted to be able to kind of set a cap at it and be like, okay, well, we're only going to be responsible for X number of dollars. So you have to stay underneath that and not go any higher in case anything happens. So that's why they voted.
and why is it separate from Article 4? Why would it be separate?
Because it's not like voting to spend $350,000. It's just like, it's just telling us that we can't accumulate an expense total of over $350,000. That's why.
Well, this is,
And it's a
yeah,
separate
this-
fund as well.
this is money that people pay, there's a fee to play basketball, and then we turn around and use those fees to pay the coaches.
Oh, okay. That's,
Yeah, I think I understand the ins and the outs of it. I was just wondering why it has a limit, and I gather it's for reasons that are a little bit lost in history or something like that.
Yes, yeah, I think that's fair to say.
Well, I think if they didn't have get the program fees in. To cover it, they theoretically could spend up to 350, right?
What were you saying, Sarah, that if they,
I'm saying that technically, if they didn't get 350,000 in program fees, they could spend up to 350,000 because there's no tie-in to the program fees here.
well, but the only money they can spend out of this is the money they collect.
Okay, okay.
So it's,
Isn't part of the benefit of this is that their activities basically span 2 fiscal years. So when they're collecting money and when they're spending it, when they're doing their work, they're on either side of June 30th and July 1st. And I thought that was part of the reasoning here. Is that valid or is that completely separate?
I believe that's part of the reason why the revolving fund was established. You could keep the funds in that like bucket.
Right.
But it doesn't relate to this. This 350 is like just for the fiscal year.
Okay.
Yeah, and like the 350 kind of gives them, you know, more flexibility without having to go to appropriation too. So if they want to start a new program, they don't have to go to town meeting and say, hey, can we spend more money? And things like that. Would say, oh yeah, if it fits within the 350,000, sure, like start a new program, but make sure you collect the money first.
So it's large enough to, it's not constraining the recreation program, Andrea, I gather. I mean, I don't know what, yeah.
Yeah,
Great.
it offers more flexibility and keeps the funds with the program and.
Good. I just don't want to constrain the program, that's all.
Are there any limits with revolving funds on how long the duration can be from when you collect funds to when you spend them? Is it like a couple years or does it not even matter?
I mean, they recommend that, you know, if you're running a program that you collect the money and then have the program. But they realize that sometimes there's like, you know, summer programs that some towns actually collect 100% upfront. So they'll collect everything in like January, February for the summer, and then they'll spend it throughout the summer and sometimes into the September. They don't necessarily reconcile. So like if they have, say they have funds left over, they didn't realize that their expenses were going to be lower, they can carry that over. And eventually they could use it for, you know, some miscellaneous capital stuff like, you know, more equipment or I can't think of anything off my head, but as long as they keep it below the threshold, you can keep it in there. So as far as like how old dollars are, they want you to keep the money coming in and out, but they don't really age money, if you will. If that makes sense.
So the auditors might have an issue if money came in but wasn't spent for 3 or 4 years, but presumably we wouldn't let that happen.
Right. Or we would say we had a plan for it and say, okay, well, we're collecting a little like additional fees, so we're going to use it to, you know, redo the park or, you know, a sidewalk or something that's on the parking lot. You know, something like
Here we
that.
need one on School Street.
Yeah. So they
Or
just
we
make
could
sure
have
that we
something
don't.
like a pandemic, which delayed the program.
Right, right. Yeah.
Okay.
So do we recommend this?
Yes.
Yes.
Indeed.
Okay. The next one is on the zoning bylaw changes. And I received an email from Mark Weld today suggesting that because all of the changes, a building can only be built pursuant to a special permit, so there's nothing by right. So perhaps the proper time to look at the finances is when a specific application is made and work with the planning board at that time. Mark, do you want to expound on that?
Sure. And by the way, Maury, I wasn't aware that your wife is the vice chair. She's very good at what she does. But what, after I sent my note, which I shared with Sarah before I sent it and Greg, and it said basically what we agreed to last time, which is like, guys, we want to know what the financial implications are of this zoning bylaw change. You know, How many square feet are you going to have? How many people on average could be in there? Things that were not dissimilar to what Peter Gordeau was talking about with specificity to the cell signaling permit, cell signaling plan. But I believe what happened here is that any use that is covered by the zoning change requires a special permit and is judged at that point in time for its validity, both in terms of benefits and costs to the town. So in essence, there is no permitted use allowed when this passes, if it passes, and accordingly, it doesn't have any financial impact at that point. When it does have financial impact is when a specific special permit is put before the planning board as the then special permit granting authority. And at that point, it would be incumbent upon them to do a full evaluation, not unlike a 40B is what I make it analogous to. And Ron confirmed that with me. We had an extended phone call on this. So my suggestion, unless we've missed the boat on this, is that we say we have no position on this because there is no financial impact based on the zoning change alone, and that the financial impacts are only encountered with specific application for special permits.
I think we're heading towards not recommending taking a stance on this part, which I tend to agree with. I'm a little bit concerned about the 60% impervious surface. That's a lot, and that might affect drainage costs. You know, usually it's around 35 or 40%, so that
But
seems high.
It's
But-
up to, so they can limit it to less than that. It's a maximum, so they can limit it to less if it makes sense for the project.
Right, but most of the economics try to go up to the max.
Yeah.
So anyway, that was just a point, but that's a little, there are financial implications, costs associated with that the development would have to overcome, the income from the development.
So do we say that we take no position as there's no financial impact until an application is submitted?
So Sarah,
Application for a special permit? Yeah?
I was just wondering if it's worth consideration that does taking a position on this make the limited commercial district in the town potentially more marketable? And given that different boards have an opportunity to weigh in on special permits, it seems like there's a checks and balances in the line at some point. But does our position on this help the marketability of the limited commercial district for the town?
That is an interesting point, Maury, and one that I would not argue with. And I think we could easily make a recommendation to support the change with the idea that we thought it provided the opportunity to be adjudicated at each special permit for significant revenue to the town. So yeah, I think that's a great point, actually, and I missed it. So I'd be fine with that. And Sarah, to answer your question, the idea is that if we go through with this, I'm the liaison with the planning board and Andy's over to the CPC. I'm happy to integrate with them. And I told Ron this and he suggested it at the special permit phase also, which is where the rubber really meets the road, so to speak.
I think it's fair to say, as Maury was suggesting, that there's the potential by allowing an additional type of use to attract a project that could be beneficial to the town, but the details can only be known at the time of an actual application. So if you could support this change because it it does provide a new, it enhances the potential for revenue enhancement through this change.
This is, as I said at the last, this is the Boston Redevelopment Authority approach, where you just look at every proposal independent of others. And, you know, if you're the first guy in and you can convince people that your traffic is okay on Atwater Avenue, that's fine. But if you're the second guy in and you go like, wait a minute, with your traffic, we're going to have to double the width of this place, you're screwed. So I think that's great, but you know, I'm kind of surprised that the Commonwealth will let you do that still, but I think it's good. And I think we should do as Maury suggested.
So can we have a caveat in our recommendation that we talked about, Greg, on the warrant?
Yeah, so you're endorsing this because of its potential, but you reserve
Yep.
judgment on individual projects.
Okay.
And in the discussion about it before the voters at town meeting, Sarah, you or somebody on the committee could stand up and say, this is why we support it with these guidelines, recommendations, conditions, whatever.
Right.
Yeah, I think that'd be very useful. Yes.
But I'd like the recommendation to be caveated in the warrant, in the book too, just so that we don't get people up in arms. Okay, so are we good with that?
Yep. I am. Thank you, Maury.
The changes should inspire or encourage more development, which we've been trying to do in that area for a long time.
Right.
And we can check things on a by case basis.
Well, even if we can pick off cell signaling, they're terrific. I mean, local homegrown, you know, on both ends, land ownership and the company, and presumably they would do it right, or the planning board will make sure they do it right. And that'll make a difference.
Okay. The next item is Article 11, which is the imposition of a local excise tax on bed and breakfast, hotel, lodging house, short-term rentals in town at the rate of 3% of the total amount of rent for each occupancy. And it's my understanding that this money would be collected by the state and transmitted to us, so we wouldn't have any expenses relating to this effort. And that the state determines what's being rented.
So Sarah, is this essentially a local option
Yes.
item? And so and the reason it's being undertaken is merely to enhance revenue. There's no other issue here, is there, Greg, that's represented by this warrant article?
I believe that's true. I mean, someone might argue that you're, increasing the cost of renting a room in town, but I don't think that gains a lot of traction.
I think it could be eye-opening as to how many places are being rented.
Yes, I think there's more than we realize.
Well, Sarah, thank you for saying that. I didn't know if there might be some other element going on here about there being a concern with too many places being rented. And this would help us get a better handle on exactly what that magnitude is for a later concern about permitting this kind of activity. But I gather that's not the current agenda as far as we can tell. It's just simply to accept a state option.
Right, and I get additional revenue, and I think the other thing is we have a master plan that says we don't have enough rental units, and we don't really know how many we have. So that would be interesting too.
But this doesn't apply to general rental units. It's just short term, which I would think is under a month. But yeah, that's not well defined, but.
Right, not
It is-
right.
Yeah, it is defined. I forget if it's a month or 6 weeks, it's something like that.
Like that, yeah, okay.
Do we
So
have
not
any guesstimate as to what we might see for revenue from this?
I really don't. It's really hard to say. We don't have a good handle on how many people are renting. So we have the short-term rental bylaw, but that's only capturing those places that are renting for less than 6 consecutive nights.
Mhm.
So we're not capped, and so most people are doing 7 or 6 night minimum, so they don't have to bother with the permit. Not that it's very onerous, but nonetheless, that's what we're seeing.
So I expect it would pick up a lot of summer rentals.
Yes,
We're not so popular in the winter.
correct.
Um,
But it's hard to guess what kind of dollar we're talking about for revenue. I really am hard pressed to put a number on it.
Greg, if any other
Yeah,
do other similar towns have this? Have you?
Oh,
Is it-
most towns
this-
have, most towns with any sort of rental activity have moved to this. I mean, certainly all the Cape Cod towns and certainly the towns in the Berkshires have all done it. So yes, a lot of communities have.
It would be very helpful to understand what the rental capacity is in the winter months versus summer months. Because it may affect town services in different ways, and it's.
I think it's happening now, Maury. You may recall, I think it was 218, Greg, when we had the first discussion, which was very robust on this, which was just, hey, folks, you got to do something about this. We got people pulling into our driveway thinking they're renting our house and not the
Yes.
person next door. So whatever we're going to tax is happening now.
And it may show up in the trash kind of collections too. I mean, that, that may be an evidence of that magnitude.
Yeah,
Yeah, you just don't know who's a rental.
And not to be too big brother on this, but we also didn't really know who was renting properties. And I think there was some concern about fire safety and a bunch of issues, like, so at least a few years ago, it helped identify who was involved in this practice, but.
There were some of your neighbors, I think, Maury, even up on that part of town that showed up for those meetings.
Yeah, I would say that it's more in the way of winter rentals than summer rentals.
Yeah.
So do we recommend this?
I say we do.
I would, yeah.
Yeah, I would.
Okay. Certainly seems potential revenue is worth recommending. Article 12 is to change the name of the Board of Selectmen to the Select Board.
No comment?
Yeah, no comment.
So no position on this, right?
They don't make any money, so we can't tax them.
Right. So we'll take no position, and Article 13, we don't do anything until town meeting. That's if somebody makes an amendment to the budget that requires us to come up with more money.
Exactly.
Correct. So
Right.
you make your recommendation at town meeting floor.
Okay.
And if everybody follows the recommended lines, we pass over this one.
Yep.
The sign of a successful meeting.
So any more questions on the warrant? Okay. Next is the 2022 FinCom report. I did pull it down from SharePoint and at 4:19 p.m. today, and accepted all the changes and sent it via email to everyone, so they had a clean copy. And I want to thank you, Andy, for getting it up on SharePoint, because it certainly made it a lot easier. I was a
Sure
little
did, yeah.
Yeah.
nervous at the beginning.
Yep, no, I don't blame you.
It worked.
Yep.
So do people feel they've had enough time to provide input, or where do we stand on this?
I'm good.
I am too.
I'm good.
Yeah, I am,
Good with it.
I'm fine on it. I still have a question about what I asked of you and Andy about this issue. When we speak about, what's the expression again?
Reserves, yeah,
Yes, yes.
10%.
Capital
It's the
exclusion.
cash capital exclusion.
So
Yeah,
Greg had provided separately an email that clarified that, and so maybe we could incorporate some of that into the report.
it was incorporated, right, Greg?
No,
Well, so I have it in the capital improvement plan overview, which
Yeah.
comes after this section. And it's in there, but we could pull a couple of pieces of it if you wanted to and put it in.
I didn't see that it had been put in, but maybe I've missed something. And can you just read it, or what? How do you explain it? Because I just it needs an explanation. That's all. It's an important term.
It's in here.
It is? Okay. Guide me
Because
to
I
it.
read it at 4:20 PM.
Okay.
I guess the point is whether we provide it a little bit further up where we first mentioned it.
Yeah, I'll look at that again, okay? And I'll just kind of look at that and,
Whatever you decide.
yeah,
I
okay.
think that's where we're headed, is to say that we're all good with the report, subject to your final review and changes, Sarah.
Okay, but I have one question. I need to go to the very last page and confirm when people's terms expire, because it's not clear to me exactly. I thought maybe one person was appointed to 2 years rather than 3 years to true up the date. So I have Andy expiring in 2023, Dean in 2024, Mark in 2023, Mike Pratt in 2023, Maury in 2024, and Peter in 2024. Does everyone agree with that?
Don't know otherwise.
Okay,
Sounds good to me.
and I'm 2022.
Speaking of which,
Interestingly, the only one that expires in 2022.
That's what seems a little odd that we only have one in 22.
It
Yeah.
got messed up when we went from 9 to 7.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe.
And there needs to be a change in 2023 or 2024. I thought they had made the change in 2021 when they extended people. I thought we discussed it, but
Let me go back to our records to see.
okay.
Sarah, I still do have a question on one aspect of this. It's
Yep.
under the financial highlights, and it's
Yep.
the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th bullet.
Yep.
This is sort of saying, what are we saying? It starts with the town debt service is projected to decrease by 84,365, blah, blah, blah. In lieu of acquiring debt and using the decrease in excluded debt service, I think it's misspelled. We're proposing a larger request from taxation. So what we're saying is, instead of taking on more debt and using what otherwise would be permitted for debt service, I don't know what that sentence is saying.
Yeah, so it needs to be rewritten, but what happened is we made a decision a few years ago that instead of incurring debt for small capital projects, would do the exclusion.
Right.
However, when last year, I think it was the first year, because of excess levy limit, We're no longer doing the capital exclusion. We're using excess levy capacity to pay for it. So the tax rate's remaining the same. It's not a separate vote. So I'll incorporate Greg's wording into this bullet to better
Okay.
explain what we're doing. Yeah,
Thank you. That makes much more sense to me.
okay.
Sarah, I had a
Basically,
quick
basically
question.
We're not
So-
taking on debt and we're skating around finding revenues in different ways.
Andrea?
I was just wondering, I know I looked at this yesterday. I don't know if anything's been added about the community preservation funds.
Yes, I did add tonight under the capital plan and sources of funding. I'll read to people what I've written because probably nobody's seen it. In that section, I said, our support of the town's infrastructure is also enhanced by community preservation funds, partially matched by the state. In fiscal year 2023, we support the Community Preservation Committee's recommendation to spend $1,189,500 on various projects, including $800,000 for a new practice field at the Pine Street burn dump.
Nice.
Does that make sense to people?
Mhm.
Andrea thought we should point out the fact that we're spending more in capital than is in our capital budget.
Good point. Thank you, Andrea. Yes.
Definitely.
Okay. Okay, I appreciate all the comments that people made. And I will send this out tomorrow to Greg and Andrea. I'll copy the board. Is that okay, Greg,
Yeah,
Andrea?
that's great. That's
Yep,
great.
that'd be great.
Because it's
Yeah,
supposed to rain
nice-
tomorrow.
Okay, but nice work. You put a lot of effort into this and I think it's coming together nicely.
Oh, good.
Great work on this, Sarah. This is a lot of effort.
Yep, thanks for all your
This
effort.
is. Maury
knows how much effort it is.
Right. Well, he created the base for it. Just a matter of tweaking
Greg
it.
is tired of whipping me for getting this thing into him.
Well, and I think this year we eliminated some redundancies too. And so I think it gets a little easier each year to just kind of fine tune the word.
I think you did good work. You eliminated about 1 page. It's now
Yeah.
only 9 pages, not 10. It is quite an opus.
It is. And I think next year we can streamline a little more, you know. Hopefully the 40B will be done, so I won't be under as much pressure. Updates from liaisons. Mark, I guess, has given his regarding the planning board.
Well, and also I spoke with Jack Burke and let him know that this was the direction we were headed. He said, boy, he was really sorry that I was not going to be on the CPC anymore. But then I said, well, Andy's going to, and he says, oh, that's fine then. See you later, Mark.
Right.
But he did point out that, and Greg, you probably know this better than I, that the selectmen need to approve at least the CPC thing. I don't know about my interfacing with the planning board, but.
Are you a
because-
member of the CPC?
Oh, yeah, every meeting.
Oh,
which
you're the official,
Andy
that's
knows,
right.
yeah.
Oh,
No, you're a
okay.
member and you vote.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. The selectmen will have to ratify that.
So do I need to do anything or? It's in your court, Greg. Or do I need to
Yeah.
send something to the Board of Selectmen?
If you could just send me an email saying it's a formal request from
Okay,
the FinCom, then I can get that on their future.
We're
agenda.
not, I would say that we're not in a huge rush for this, by the way, because
Right.
I'm happy to finish up anything that's with fiscal year 2023. And the CPC really doesn't ramp up for a while after that. Although this year may be a little bit different if we seriously consider the increasing the levy from 1.5 to 3 in conjunction with the bondings.
Okay.
And that's the bonding for the recreation field, Mark, that you're speaking of?
Bonding for recreation field and potentially Tux Point.
We'll cross that bridge.
There
when we
on
do
the,
it.
nothing on the liaison front from the school.
Oh,
It's been-
sorry. Yeah.
No, it's been pretty quiet.
I saw in the paper today that Essex is meeting with the school committee and the heads of the school department over future funding. They didn't mention anybody from Manchester participating. That seems to be a new subgroup.
They, I think they had a meeting this past Tuesday.
Okay.
And I haven't caught up on what transpired there.
I haven't heard anything.
Well, that's probably not too different than our meeting with the school committee as a Manchester Finance Committee, right?
No, this was going over long-range plans of school spending. This is
Oh, no,
different.
I understand, but we
Yeah, yeah.
tend to try to do all that. I mean, Maury does the lion's share of it, but we have our meetings with the school on those items, so.
Right.
Right.
I think it's fair to say this year we've had one meeting and they all tend to be pretty congenial and informative. I would say Essex has had a number of meetings. And
Okay.
so, and I think part of it's learning curve and members and things like that, but there's also some long range thoughts.
Do those long-range thoughts, Maury, take on anything other than the likelihood of an override, or there's some real long-term thinking about how the school functions? Is it on the spending side or the income side?
There's definitely ongoing talks about an override coming up.
Yes.
But I think there's with new members on the Essex committee, there's sort of a reach to get more involved in the process. And I think the line that many of us have taken, and Greg, you can add to this, but is that the school runs their business. And ultimately they're good at doing that. And they basically give us a bill. And we can advise along the way, but it's not really our role to get into negotiations with various people and things like that. So I don't know, Greg, if you have thoughts on that.
No, I agree, but I also think that it's not just discussions about an override. I think there are a lot of questions being asked about the structure and the funding and why is it that they need overrides every so many years. So there's a new message coming from Essex. We'll see how long how much traction it has, but certainly from some segments, there's a pretty heavy push to tamp down school spending.
As Maury points out, a lot of that is uninformed at this stage. They don't know the implication of cutting 50, 100, $1 million. And they're at the same point in time, they're talking about a new school, new elementary school in Essex. So I think that Maury's right. They just got to get into reality here, you know.
Well, and how much was spent on that playground?
350?
No, it's much more. Was it only, I thought it was like 500.
No, it wasn't that much.
Okay.
It was less than that.
Okay. But you know, do you want arts in your school or do you want a playground? I don't know. A $350,000 playground. I don't know.
Well, as long as the school goes up faster than 2.5, you're going to have a problem over time.
Right.
Exactly.
It's just-
Well, and as long as the state does not support special education in any way, you can get croaked in an hour.
Mm.
And, you know, just to kind of fill in a little bit on the school and even the notion of spending the money to add that playground, you know, there was a lot of attention in the building committee meetings, for the memorial school project of trying to make sure that there was parity between, this new school and the existing Essex school. And, as it happened, their grand old playground was on its last legs and a good place to gather splinters. And then otherwise, there've been a lot of efforts, within the school to make sure that, some of their systems are up to speed, that some of the, the teaching tools that are used in the new memorial school are also available to the Essex school.
Right, yeah.
I mean, the
Equity.
challenge is, and we've talked about this for years and years and years, but the math is basically that 85% of their costs are people. And the rate of increase for those people is north of 3.5%. When you look at 2.5 and you look at COLAs and you look at longevity and other things, that without getting into all the specifics, their predominant cost factor is increasing significantly faster than 2.5. So that's the math of the background. Now, how much do they need and all that is up for discussion, but they run a different business than we do in the town. We have a lot of equipment and a lot of rolling stock and 60 some odd employees, and they have over 200 employees, and it's a different model. So
they also they have that additional wild card of special education requirements that are really mandated upon them.
Getting more and more expensive. We finished with updates from liaisons. Okay. Next item on the agenda is just a general discussion of, do we expect any articles to be on the June warrant that might require advance work by the Finance Committee? I don't know how far along people are on the June warrant, but it's going to be on us pretty soon. And I'm just wondering if there's anything, Greg, you think that's going to be a red flag we need to look at.
And Sarah, the June warrant is to focus on the recodification of the zoning bylaws.
Yeah, but I don't know what else was taken out of the April that's been put to June. I know
I
that
see. Okay.
recodification certainly was a big item. I don't know, Greg, do you have any idea? Is it too early?
So at this point, the focus is on zoning amendments. The question, the dispatch question will be a ballot question.
Yep.
For the town election, and select board will be hosting a couple of forums, one on April 14th and the other on May 5th, I believe. I think those are both Thursdays, if I remember correctly. So in terms of other items on the June warrant, I'm not anticipating much else at all. We're hoping to cover any over expenditures in any given department, primarily through in the last couple of months, we're able to shift between different departments if we need to, and then your reserve. I'm hoping that'll be sufficient to cover everything, and that we don't need a supplement beyond that. But we are facing some pretty high overages in public safety, both fire and police, on overtime because of staff being out, and then our legal expenses are quite high, primarily due to the 40B and some personnel matters that are ongoing. So, like I say, I want to think that we'll be able to handle that within your reserve and shifting between different departments where we have some unexpended funds. But I can't guarantee it where we sit right now.
Okay.
So Greg, how does that work? Does that mean that if we have a meeting in June, you can vote to move things around at the end of fiscal year 23, or is that all forward looking to 24 because the meeting has to get ratified?
So we would be looking potentially to do a supplemental appropriation, tapping into reserve fund, fund balance, to pay for 22 bills.
Okay.
And once that vote is held, you have the money to spend.
Got it.
Correct.
Through the Finance Committee Reserve Fund.
No,
No,
outside,
In
the
addition
fund
to-
balance, the fund
I
balance.
see. I see.
Where are our legal bills headed, Greg? You must, I mean, are we 10x what we budgeted, or, you know, hundreds of thousands of dollars, or?
No, it could be as much, I don't have the numbers in front of me, but it could be in the $75,000 range,
Above budget?
above budget.
Yeah.
Yes.
And Greg, could you just walk us through what happens at the ballot if the dispatch passes or doesn't pass? If it
I
passes,
don't, Peter,
no,
I
no,
don't,
next
want-
year.
no, Peter, I don't want to discuss dispatch at all tonight. We're going to have a separate meeting on dispatch.
okay, I'm just wondering what happens to this budget, the budget, the 23.
So if the voters, you know, were voice their recommendation to keep dispatch in-house,
Uh-huh.
and that's the direction that the selectmen feel that they need to go in there, and then it is possible that you could see an amendment, a supplement to the 23 budget
Right.
to bolster our in-house dispatch.
But it's a non-binding vote.
It's a non-binding vote, so the selectmen are going to have to see
Figure it
what the spread is between the yays and the nays, and make a
And-
decision.
And when does the warrant have to be done for the June 11th town meeting?
Well, that technically doesn't have to be in place until the almost the end of May.
Okay.
It's
So-
2 weeks. 2 weeks ahead is the minimum, 14 days.
Okay.
Would another option be if these expenses start showing up to, instead of going, we're a little bit over on our capital target of 3 million. We got 3.3. Could we look at maybe postponing some of those projects? I mean, would that be another consideration as opposed to just, if we don't do this, we have to appropriate more? Could we just look at spending less?
You could.
Yeah.
That's interesting. Andrea, can you amend a budget once it's been approved?
And
I,
yes, you can. I would just, the only thing I would be concerned of is any of the projects that have been voted from fund balance would be immediately available after the April town meeting. So if they
Right.
started spending it, that would be difficult. But if it was anything coming from taxation, that's not available until 7/1. So you could rescind those at the June meeting.
Right, and I wouldn't want to spend reserve, fund balance on new operating. So I would want to take it from the taxation column. So that is consistent, that would work.
Or you just don't spend what's appropriated.
Right,
You can manage to it if you need to.
but you do have
Yeah,
to raise it. You have to raise it if it's been appropriated, I believe.
Does it have to be on the warrant in order to be raised at a second meeting that could effectively change an established budget? For example, could somebody at a second meeting raise their hand and say, I know it's not on the warrant, but I'd like to challenge the current budget for this or that? It
Yeah,
has to be
on the warrant.
and it has to be specifically listed for the section of the warrant that it applies to?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks, Greg.
That's like when Ed Corley stood up, Maury, don't you remember, at the town meeting?
Yep.
And said, I want to change the name to Manchester by the Sea, and everybody said, that's a good idea. And the Attorney General said, are you people crazy? You didn't even advertise that.
Right. And still people come up to me and say, oh, Manchester, do you live in Manchester or Manchester by the Sea? And I won't tell them my answer, but I will say that I've been involved as a volunteer in town government long enough to see files come by with both.
Yeah.
And we probably will for the next 20 years.
Probably the select board will be about the same too.
Yes.
Okay, so we done with this?
Mhm.
Let's go on to review minutes. Did people have a chance to look at the minutes from March 10th?
Yes.
Yes.
Any issues, changes?
I'd make a motion, we approve.
Second,
I'll take a roll call vote. Peter,
Yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Andy,
yes,
Maury,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. I have two minor changes to the minutes from 3/17, which I will explain to people. One change is on page 2, right about in the motion above the bold for LCD changes. It says, the second line says in December 2022 to ACC, to access ACC ESS, and it should be assess ASS ESS. And the next one is the top of the next page. When it talks about the third line down, it says most of the traffic will likely be heading north on Route 128, exiting onto School Street, and turning left. I think they're saying the traffic will be, I think they were talking about traffic leaving Atwater and it would be going to Route 128 south.
Well,
We'll be
either that or he
turning-
was talking about coming to the site, right?
No, but it's saying, this is saying most of the traffic will likely be heading north on Route 128, exiting onto School Street and turning left. So if you if
Yeah,
you leave
yeah.
Atwater on School, you're gonna turn left on 128, which will take you to 128 south, not north.
No, but if you're coming in the morning, you would be going north on 128. You would exit in Manchester and then you would take a left up School Street to get to Atwater Avenue.
That's not what this is saying.
All right, I take whatever you want. I approve.
Because if you turn left off to School Street, you're going north, not south.
Okay, whatever.
That's my comments.
You'll have a left turn in the morning and a left turn in the afternoon, and those are the critical ones.
Can't go north twice.
Maybe Gail can expand on that to make it clear, morning and night or something.
What do you recommend?
Yeah, I have a motion to approve the March 17th minutes as amended.
You do. You have a motion.
A second.
second,
Any discussion? Take a roll call vote. Peter,
Yes. Don't go north twice.
Mark,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Andy,
yes,
Maury,
Yes.
and Sarah votes yes. Now, the next was to discuss the next meeting and what we needed to cover, and Board of Selectmen have messed me up by having a meeting on Thursday, April 14th.
Yes, yes.
So we have two items we need to cover. dispatch and a meeting with the auditors. And I think dispatch, we're gonna have to make some type of recommendation. It'll be difficult for us to do it prior to April 14th, but I think we need to do it before the public forum in May.
We can do it right now, I think.
No,
From a financial standpoint, come on.
Yeah, I thought we already recommended that
Yeah, I
it
thought we
saved the
already
town
recommended
money,
it. Yeah,
but that there are other issues beyond finance.
I thought we recommended and then option 2, which is the night staffing.
Whatever. Well, I'm sorry, Sarah, I didn't mean.
having
to-
it dark at night, at the night staff. So we want to stick with the decision we made before? We don't need any additional discussion?
Not unless the facts have changed.
What changes? We got the report.
Yeah, we should.
Yeah, no,
probably-
we should talk about it. I was being too facetious at that point, sorry.
So I think you had a concern with meeting on April 7th, Andy. Is that right? That you asked me if we were meeting?
Yeah, next week.
Okay. Are people available on Tuesday, April 12th?
Yeah, yes. Yes,
I
Yes.
believe so, yeah.
Does that conflict with anything else, Greg, that you know you're aware of?
No, not that I'm aware of. Let me just double check, but I don't. Nothing's coming to mind for that day.
Tuesdays are usually pretty light.
Yeah, no, I don't see
Okay.
anything there.
Will the
Okay.
agenda for that have to be posted on Friday? Or
So
Tuesday?
2 weeks away. I have till next week to post it.
Right.
I can't post on Friday. I have to post on a Thursday. The town hall's closed on Friday.
Yeah,
So it'll have to be posted by next Thursday. So I might err on the side of safety and post it earlier than Thursday. So do we want Andrea to see if she can get the auditors here that day also? Have the auditors come in and dispatch. Auditors might not be available, but
We can get it done in one meeting, might as well.
Might as well, yeah.
this
Is
is
that-
Tuesday the 12th we're talking about, right?
yes.
I'll reach out to them and let you know.
Okay, thank you.
And Sarah, would you put them on first at 7 like we normally have in the past?
Sure, yep. We always like to do outsiders first.
Yeah.
Anything else we need to discuss? I'm going to work on what I'm going to say at town meeting. I guess I need to do that soon, and I'll just circulate it. I don't think I did last. I'll circulate it to people to see if they have any suggestions for changes.
Sounds good.
It's supposed to be lots of rain next week.
So you're really you're going ahead with your garden tomorrow? Is that your plan?
No, I've got the plants arriving tomorrow. It's
Ah,
going to rain tomorrow, so.
I know, I was trying to, gauge my planting time on yours.
Yeah, no, it looks like I've got Saturday or Monday.
Ah.
Those are the only 2 days.
Hey, I'm not even taking the plowing stakes out yet. You guys are way ahead of me.
Oh, I took mine out all except for 3. They did a lot of damage to granite curbing I have, so I left those stakes in just in case they come
You know, all the bulbs and crocuses are coming up, and then it was so cold in the beginning of the week. It's like, no, go back down, hide. You know?
They
I
are.
am, I have daffodils almost ready to come out. We'll see if they can or not with the warmer weather. Any other business that people would like to discuss that was not anticipated by the chair? Wow. Then at 8:30, I'll take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second,
Second, take a roll call vote. Peter,
yes.
Mark,
Yes.
Dean,
Yes.
Andy,
Yes.
Lori,
Yes, thank you, Sarah.
Sarah votes yes. Thank you very much, everyone.
All right, good work, everybody. Thank you.
Night.
Okay, good
Night,
night.
Greg.
Night.
Good night, Andrea.
Night.
Night.
Night.